Welcome to another edition of the Heron Outlet. She is Alex Winley. I am Ian Hest. And Alex, what a weekend in South Florida between the Heat, the Panthers, even the NFL draft, and also Inter Miami getting back to their winning ways, getting rid of that 6-game MLS losing streak as they advanced in the U.S. Open Cup earlier in the week against Miami FC. Finally getting that win against Columbus in Columbus, a big win for against one of the better teams, or what is expected to be one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference come later on this season. That's where we begin today, Alex. And just your overall thoughts from a 2-1 win that saw goals from Leo Campana getting on the score sheet for the first time this season. And not only that, in the process now immediately becoming the team's leading goal scorer this season.
Yeah, it was a scrappy win for Miami, but they needed it. And, Neville had to make some decisions about who he was going to play. He benched Joseph, benched Pizarro. Both of them didn't get off the bench. And, we saw Benjamin Cremaschi have his breaking out party with an assist on the first Leo Campana goal. So it worked out in the end. And, Kamal Miller had a strong game. We saw Chris McVeigh come in the second half and have a good game as well in that back three along with Sergei. Yedlin was returned to his normal right wing back spot and whatnot. But yeah, it worked out really well. The team played, it was ugly soccer, but they scored when they needed to and they held on, and they basically defended and countered for most of the game. And Crew had all of the possession, but they didn't really do much with it. And Nagby and Aiden Morris, Darlington Nagby and Aiden Morris were not very effective this game because of, Dixon Arroyo and John Mata and Cremaschi just kind of pressuring them for, 73 minutes. And then you had David Ruiz come on and continue to do the same. But yeah, it was a well fought game for Miami. Not the prettiest, but, they were in a free fall regarding their losses. So they needed to just, get a result. And it was a really good one where they scored multiple goals. Campana got on the score sheet twice. Benha got an assist on his first MLS start. The youngest, I think he's the youngest player to get an assist, I think, and on his debut or something. But yeah, it was a good, solid all around game. Maybe not, like I said, not the prettiest, but still, Miami needed that win to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, let's talk about the possession, because that was, for me, probably the biggest takeaway is only 30% possession, and Inter Miami did to Columbus sort of like what other MLS teams were doing to Miami during that losing streak. And the fact that Columbus had a lot of the ball, Miami in that losing streak, sometimes up to 67% possession during those games, but it wasn't with a purpose. I've talked about this a lot, that there wasn't really anything that you felt dangerous on the other end, that they had the ball and they were able to move it and find pockets, but they weren't able to have like goal creating actions, shot creating actions that really tested Drake in a way that made you feel like, okay, we like the hatches are getting battened down right now, and we got to protect whatever we have. It sort of felt like they were just comfortable giving the ball to Columbus and almost played anti-Inter Miami ball that we've seen in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it here. They were out. Inter Miami were outcrossed. 26-13. They had more long balls than the Crew. They had less short passes. The Crew, short passed them to that 45 times to Inter Miami's 233. They outpassed them, and their average pass streak was about 6 for the Crew and 3 for Miami. So Miami looked to go quickly and long as much as possible, and we saw that in the first goal with Stefanelli with a great ball into Benha, and Benha had the wise decision to knock it down into Campana, and they just went quick and very fast and try to get the Crew in transition to hurt them there. And I think this team is probably more built for transition style, even without people like Ariel Lassiter. They're gone. Emerson's on loan. Maybe without wingers, maybe they can still play a transition style of soccer, even without some of the quicker players on their roster. And I know Neville came into the season, bent on playing two strikers and keeping the ball, but it always ends up like this, where he ends up fitting the tactics to the players he has available, which is a recurring theme under his tenure here. But Sometimes if it works, it works. Miami, they look more comfortable, defending and countering, and we saw that they were able to get the win in that regard. So, will that happen this weekend against Atlanta? Probably. They'll probably have most of the ball, but Miami will be playing at home, so maybe it'll be different. But, let's see.
So that brings me to Pizarro and Joseph not playing at all, being on the bench and not getting in even as substitutes. Because when I think of especially with Pizarro, he is very much a hold and carry type player. He wants the possession. He wants to dribble through the midfield and create through his dribble. Something like the Stefanelli pass is not something that we've really seen from Rodolfo Pizarro in his game. And Joseph can be similar. Joseph is very cerebral in that he likes to dummy off people, make off ball runs, different things. But especially specifically to Pizarro, I wonder if this tactical change will impact his ability to get on the pitch, because if he's a specific type of player, like you had just mentioned, the tactics are fitting the players instead of the players trying to go to the tactics. He's kind of an odd man out, and stylistically, Coco can play those type passes. Stefanelli can play those type of passes. We saw what Cremaschi could do. It was very exciting from him on Saturday. That I wonder if Pizarro is sort of this odd man out at the moment, and we're going to have to figure out where you go with what he's going to bring to the club.
Yep, and we saw it with Nashville a couple days ago. Ake Loba, who was their DP, they mutually agreed to a contract termination, and this is just a prediction. I can kind of see that happening to Pizarro, especially in the summer. We're still seeing the Messi linked rumors to enter Miami, and looking at his situation with PSG, and Barcelona maybe not able to afford him again. I'm not saying it is a possibility, but Messi's options are running short. But I think also they do have a DP spot open. All they need to do is they buy down Gregory, and it's a whole thing. But still, if they want extra wiggle room, they can maybe come to a mutual agreement with a Pizarro, let him go free in the summer. I don't know. I think that's technically a buyout. I know there's a new almost rule where that you can buy them out mid-season, I believe, and
It has
like
to
I said,
happen
I can logo
before.
with Nashville as soon.
It has to happen before
Huh?
the secondary transfer market opens. So it has to happen
Okay,
before
so
summer.
yeah, so that's still an option for Miami, and yeah, like I said with Akailoba and Nashville, if Miami want extra wiggle room with, they're still linked to Busquets, they're still linked to Messi. I could see Pizarro, maybe getting, mutually agreed contract termination bought out. Maybe they could have done it before the season started, but they wanted to recuperate on the transfer fee that they bought him for at 12 million a couple years ago, but they weren't able to find a buyer. So in the summer, should push comes to shove, I can see them just being ruthless like they were with Bryce Duke, Ari Lassiter, bringing in Kamal Miller, getting that 1.3 million and was it general allocation money, I believe. I can see them being ruthless in that regard. And in regards to Pizarro, maybe buy him out during the summer, get some extra wiggle room for a Messi acquisition or Busquets. We know that their big moves are coming. They, like I said, they do have that 1.3 million in allocation money, so they're gonna have to do something with it. So, yeah, where does that leave Pizarro? I think Benja Cremaschi made a very good case and showing to honestly be a starter going forward. I mean, he's a young player who has a big engine, and he's a local kid, so he's going to play even more for the badge. And Pizarro, he's different skill set. Sometimes if Miami wants to go quick on the counter, Pizarro has a tendency to slow things up a bit. And but yeah, I don't know where this leaves Pizarro, but it's with Ben Haas showing what he can do, I think that Pizarro's time as a starter has it's inching to a close.
Well, it's interesting because looking back on it, excuse me, perhaps the tea leaves we could have read into a little bit more. In talking with Bill after the Bryce Duke trade, he had said that sort of the situation of how many players had come in and out. One of the comments that he had said during there was Pizarro was a situation that we were stuck with, and that was almost prophetic in seeing how things were going to go down the line. He also did say multiple times that Inter Miami, in his estimation, is a club that will always have DP number 10s. And that still is an interesting comment when you're looking towards the possibility with that money of making a change in the future. The other person, though, that didn't play that I think still is going to be in the rotation, who we'll get to talk to later on this week, and excited to hear from him, is Josef Martinez, who when Phil said that he was going to start rotating through and he needed to make some changes in the lineup, that was really where everybody went right off the bat, a la Higuain last year, and hopefully with the same results. For Josef, how does he find his way back into the fold here, especially with Schneider Borgelin, who has played very well to start the year, played well against Miami FC on Wednesday, and Campana, who's now finding his goal-scoring form in getting a brace this past weekend?
Yeah, and I think with Joseph, I think yeah, I don't want to blame. It's a new team for him, and he'll struggle to just get into the groove and everything. I know people are just kind of bombarding him and whatnot, but it takes time. Last year he was able to still score 9 goals coming off the bench for Atlanta, and there were times that he can get himself in a good goal scoring positions, but the way Inter Miami play, it warrants a big striker, number 9 back to goal, Leo Campana, Borgelin type of player, and we see how much success that the two of them are having, with Borgelin scoring in one MLS game, and then he scored in the U.S. Open Cup, and then now Campana with the 2 goals, and Miami's style of play warrants a big number 9 up top, but Joseph is what 5'9". He's a little bit more off the shoulder. He likes to make runs in behind. Like you said, he's cerebral. He likes those dummy runs. And, his style of play right now is not meshing with what Inter Miami is doing. So Neville's job is the coaching staff's job. The coaching staff's job is to get Joseph into a, kind of form the tactics to him if he's the lone striker up top. Play more to his feet. Play him alongside, maybe a guy like Robert Taylor on the wing, who's, he's tall. I think he's about 6 foot. Maybe give some of that height up there so he can play off of him, and just have someone play off of Joseph that he can do these 1-2, touches with. And I think that's when we will start to see him score and get more comfortable. But right now, Miami is, they're a big number 9 team. Campana, Borgelin, Lassiter, when he was here, he was deployed up there. Maybe not as a pure, back to goal, but Neville likes those big, tall strikers back to goal, and we see it with Borgelin and Campana. But with Joseph, he's a little bit smaller, cerebral, and it'll just take time for him to get adjusted to that. But we know Joseph can score in the league, and he will end up scoring, whether it be in U.S. Open Cup, MLS, league play, or Leagues Cup. He will start scoring. So against Atlanta, I don't think he'll be starting, but if they need a goal, he'll probably come off the bench, and him scoring against his ex team will be a fitting way to get his 2023 account open.
Really, you don't see him starting? Because I do. I see him finding his way back in this weekend. It's an emotional time. Joseph's an emotional player. And sometimes a game like this is the type of game that he can get going in and feel confident going up against his former team with that chip on his shoulder, with something to prove. That I think this is, and being back at home where he'll have the love and the support from the fans, instead of hearing all the boos or whatever it might be in Atlanta if they were to. But this to me seems like the type of game that Joseph would thrive in.
Honestly, I think I think Neville will run back the same starting 11, and I really do think if Campana doesn't score, get going, or even or Benha or someone, he'll go full court press and bring on Joseph, have Campana up there. Maybe if Jake LaCava is on the bench, similar to the U.S. Open Cup, if they're struggling for goals, I think Neville will just bring on every forward possible off the bench and then, go for it. I don't think, honestly, I don't think Joseph will start. I think, Campana's, on a hot streak now. You start the guy with a hot hand. But I do see Joseph playing in the game, maybe 45th minute, 50th, 60th minute, him coming on. But I can't see him starting at the moment. I think with the starting 11 that won against the Crew, I think Neville will run it back again. Maybe with Pizarro for Benha, but Benha is a pretty energetic player who, he doesn't seem like he needs a rest. He's still young. He could probably go again as well. But yeah, I can't see Joseph starting, but I can see him coming off the bench later. And Also, I do believe that Miami have the U.S. Open Cup
Right.
game.
It's a 3 game week. That was what I was going to
Yeah,
say.
next
It's
week.
a 3 game
Yeah,
week. So you have Charleston on Tuesday and New England the following Saturday. So that might come into play as well.
yeah. I think Joseph will probably start against Charleston. You know, they're in USL, maybe lower opposition. You know, you get Joseph to start against them, get some minutes under his belt, but and then we get to see Campana rest before Miami take on New England. But yeah, honestly, I can't see Joseph starting this weekend, but I do see him playing a significant minutes, maybe at halftime or whatnot.
I don't want to sleep on Charleston because I think that I mean, they are the best
Yeah.
team in the Eastern Conference in the USL Championship this year. A very well coached team. So that's going to be a tough match on Tuesday. But I want to stick with Saturday and Atlanta for now. It also does bring back Clement Diop, who's starting in goal for Atlanta. After Brad Guzan went down with an injury, won't be back until the summer. So Diop will have a homecoming of his own. He was sort of a grandfather mentor to a lot of the guys in the training facility. I wonder if knowing his tendencies will help, or is this just media inside baseball type stuff that we're doing where we overthink things and think that
Hmm.
someone knows a secret tendency that we don't know.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely lean into that. But goalkeepers are goalkeepers, and Miami will just continue to play their regular game and maybe not think about it too much. But I'm sure they'll be happy to see Clement and Clement happy to see his ex teammates, and I'm sure Neville will be happy to see him and Clement likewise. So yeah, I think it will be just a good reunion of sorts. But I don't think maybe if it comes to penalties, but yeah, I don't think it'll have an overarching, uh, you know, uh, what's the word? Like an influence on
Right. It's,
how
well, it's
things
like a
go.
beat
So
reporter's dream, right? To think that there's some secret that
yeah,
that people don't know about. That one player will know that he goes to his right at this sort of angle. Probably a little sillier than what happens in reality. It is one of two times that Atlanta will come down to South Florida this year. The next time will be during the Leagues Cup, as they're in the same group as Inter Miami, who will host their 2 games. One of them being Atlanta later on this summer. Atlanta's already been knocked out of the Open Cup, so they won't have to deal with a midweek game. They lost to Memphis earlier in the tournament, the last round, so they won't have to deal with that midweek game. They'll be able to put all their eggs in this basket for Saturday, and they have basically, after, if you listen to the comments that they made after their Open Cup loss, they had said that they're all in on the MLS regular season. They're not really going to pay much attention to. Well, they're not. They're out of the U.S. Open Cup, and maybe they'll pay attention a little bit more to Leagues Cup. But they seemed all in, and especially where they are up on the near the top of the Eastern Conference standings right now, it makes sense for them to care more about the MLS games. I wonder how much that plays into it with Miami knowing that they're going to have a midweek game, knowing that the Open Cup is something that Miami is caring about this year. And Atlanta is going to go for it with an opportunity to really capitalize on this and see if they can get a cheap 3 points on the road.
yeah, yeah. I think Miami will want to defend that though as well. Atlanta and Miami, they're not rivals as in compared to Orlando and Miami or even DC and Miami, but there are some. Joseph ex player, and they're going to want to get a win, and likewise Miami, they would want to continue that win streak. But like you said, Ian, the U.S. Open Cup, they have to take into account, who's going to start. If they're down by 2 goals and they're looking forward towards the U.S. Open Cup. Excuse me, are they going to switch some players out or just kind of rotate a little bit? But yeah, I think they're going to go for it. But like you said, I think Miami, the playoffs are expanded this year, and there's 9 teams in each conference. So yeah, you can have a losing streak like Miami did, like Miami had, or just 2 games ago, but still make the playoffs. I guess later in the season if they go on a good run. But the U.S. Open Cup, it's you lose and you're out. So I think yes, the Atlanta game will be priority. They would like to get a win, especially Joseph, his ex team. But the U.S. Open Cup, I think, will be more so a priority. Against Miami FC, Neville went with this kind of hybrid starting 11, and then the starters came in the second half or late in the second half, and changed the game, and then they ended up winning on penalties. So I think with Charleston and they're at home, I don't think they'll do that. I think that he'll go full strength and try to get a win there. And I believe Orlando and Miami are in the same pool, so Orlando will be playing another MLS team, which I think is Charlotte. I have to
Yep.
double check. So
Yep.
they're obviously going to, yeah, they're obviously going to be rooting for the upset there. Last year Miami lost on penalties to Orlando, so it would be a great if Charlotte can knock them out somehow. Charlotte hasn't been having a good MLS season either, so it would be cool. Ideal for Miami to have Orlando out, Charlotte maybe beat them, and then maybe advance. I think the U.S. Open Cup is definitely feasible for Miami, and they should definitely just look to get some silverware somewhere.
As our producer Andres just said, 8 seeds are pretty trendy right now in South Florida. They're doing pretty well after the Heat knocked
Yeah.
off the number 1 seed Bucks and the Panthers knocked off the number 1 seed Boston Bruins. Maybe Miami should go for the 8 seed in the MLS playoffs this year. But you did bring up a good point. The Open Cup, the way that the draw has gone, went almost as beneficial for Miami as it could have been, with Miami FC versus Tampa Bay Rowdies having a close game there. Now getting a home game against the USL team instead of the other two MLS teams that were in their quadrant. They will play, whoever wins the Miami Charleston game will play the winner of Charlotte versus Orlando, and that will be whoever comes out of that quadrant is in the quarterfinals. That's sort of the regional breakdown of how the U.S. Open Cup works. So that's about the easiest path that they could have had to get to the quarterfinals. It's set up nicely for them to try and make this deep run, and then from there see if you get a Sacramento that did a run. Charleston Battery were the very first version of Sacramento Republic. If you remember about, I'm trying to remember, 7-8 years ago, then they made a very long U.S. Open Cup run. I think that ended for them in the semifinals, if I remember right. But definitely an opportunity. I think that Phil still does go with that hybrid lineup simply because you have New England coming, and that's going to be a really tough one. Atlanta, I think that what they're going to look into is similar to what we saw against Columbus. And this is what I wanted to bring up, is that we saw at the start of the second half that Coco John came off in favor of Chris McVeigh, and Phil decided to switch to 3 center backs and sort of a back 5, like you mentioned earlier, with DeAndre playing more of his natural right wing back, Franco Negri playing a left wing back. But it was parking the bus, very plain and simple. I think that they wanted to see out a 2-1 victory, and they did it effectively. They did it efficiently, and that's something to be proud of. Considering how reluctant they've been to throw 3 center backs on, even in the wake of the Gregory injury, when I was saying that makes the most sense before Dixon Arroyo came, before Kamal Miller came, that was what made the most sense to sort of plug this hole of Jean Mota and what you're doing at the number 8 and what you're doing at the number 6. Now to go to it, how did you like it? Do you think this is a tactic that they should employ more often? Would you start with it, or is it something that making a change like that right off of halftime where the other team will have to adjust on the fly might be a little more effective for this style of play?
I think starting with Yedlin as the right center back, I know a lot of people are not for that, but I see how it can bring some tactical flexibility. Yedlin sometimes can tuck in, and Negri can be that winger, and it'll be a balanced 3-2. A build up of 3 in the 2 center midfielders. But then if Miami wants to switch into a regular back 4, Yedlin can easily, be a natural winger. A fullback. So I'm not against it. I think if Miami wants to do that, consistently, maybe Yedlin isn't the player to do it. I think McVay, like we saw last season, he can play as a fullback, whether it be on the right or left side. So maybe McVay is a lot more comfortable if you start in the back 3. I don't want to bring this up, but like Man City, you have Kyle Walker or John Stones play that role, and they're both comfortable, going up and then sliding in as a center back. So maybe if you're going to do that, put in a McVay who is used to playing as a fullback. Have him in that back 3. But if you want to switch to a flat back 4, McVay can easily play as a fullback as well. But I don't think Yedlin is the ideal player to play as a third center back. Not quite yet. He's his natural thing is a wing back. Full back. You want to play to Yedlin's strength of getting up and down the field, the wing. But if you're going to do that, I'd rather McVay and then you have Yedlin as the Coco Jean role instead of bringing McVay on in the second half. I do think McVay is too good to be sitting on the bench. So if they're going to continue doing this back three, I think it's McVay. This should be the starter going forward. And I'm sorry, Coco Jean, maybe your role is kind of diminished to the bench at the moment. But you go with the hot hands and the tactics that are working.
See, I thought that it worked well in terms of it being just for the second half, to go aggressively in the first half, try and get a lead, and then slow it down in the second half. Too often last year, I felt like while it was very exciting and it wound up being the MO of the team, those late game dramatics can wear down a team. I don't know if you can always, I sort of equate it to turnovers in football, where a team that gets a lot of turnovers, you could say has great defense, but it's pretty random that happens, and the ball bounces a certain way once or twice. You're not getting that same thing. To bring it back to soccer, to count on 80th plus minute goals to save you to get points so many times, I don't know if it's a consistent recipe for success. I don't know if year after year after year you can count on something like that. And what Austin has preached for a while is trying to get the lead into the halftime. How much better Miami's results are when they have halftime leads compared to when they're down or even tied at halftime. So I think that maybe sticking with what they did against Columbus, where Coco's starting and then McVay comes on as that change of pace to sort of like vice squeeze the life out of the game and sort of run it into the ground. And then you have to keep DeAndre on the field. So wherever he is, he's too important both in his talent and his leadership, that he has to be on the field. And so I think you just have to sort of figure it out from there. That being said, I do want to touch on Phil Neville's performance in this game, because he does get named as the coach of the match day, coach of the week in MLS for that win. Did do that tactically. Also started Benjamin Cremaschi, which many people, a young kid who came in. He came off in the 71st minute for another young kid in David Ruiz, who just signed this to the senior team this past week. The decisions that he made in terms of leaving Joseph on the bench, in terms of leaving Pizarro on the bench, in terms of making the tactical changes, trusting in Cremaschi. How do you judge what he did? He's been under a lot of heat in the past couple of weeks during the losing streak. But he made the decision this week to go with a more, not give less possession based, right? Obviously, and focus on different things. It was a different approach that we saw from Phil Neville in this game, as opposed to what I think a lot of fans have been upset about the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, and kudos to Neville. Miami has preached about wanting to be a team that plays young players and develops young players, and they put they practice what they preach. They put on Benjamin Cremaschi, who I'm a huge fan of. Same thing with David Ruiz, huge fan of them. They're ready for MLS minutes. Compared to maybe how they handled guys like Edison Escona or Noah Allen. Guys like Benjamin Cremaschi, all of them, every Inter Miami homegrown are so talented, and I want to see all of them get more minutes. But guys like Benjamin Cremaschi, David Ruiz, they're ready. They're ready for most minutes. Cremaschi showed that he can play. Same thing with David Ruiz. Now we need to get, Noah Allen's coming back from injury. Now we need to get Edison Ascona back into the fold. He's been playing with Inter Miami CF2. I think he could be that number 10 that Miami has needed. So, and then obviously you have guys like Schneider Borgelin, who is a South Florida native. Miami getting his homegrown rights, signing him. So there's a bunch of homegrown talent that Miami has, and I would love to see them play and get more minutes like this. That's why I think this win was so powerful, because we saw Ben Ha get that important assist. We saw David Ruiz come in and kind of shut down not shut down, but stymie Darlington Nagbe and just kind of prevent him from doing Darlington Nagbe things. How good, clean, crisp he is on the ball. So it was really rewarding to see them. We've covered them through the academy and Fort Lauderdale CF, Inter Miami CF2. Now they're getting first team minutes. So Yeah, really cool to see Ben Haas getting a lot of praise from MLS accounts, fellow journalists, other people who are in the U.S. men's national team scene, Argentina. So it was really rewarding to see, and I would like to see every Inter Miami homegrown, Mascona, Noah Allen, um, Benha, David Ruiz, Ian Frey. How we didn't, I don't think we've mentioned him yet. He's coming back from his knee injury. We'd like to see all of them get into the fray. Hopefully, Felipe Valencia one of these days. But yeah, it's just really rewarding to see because we've covered them for a long time, and seeing Benha get that assist is like the start of a very long future for Inter Miami homegrowns.
Yeah, no, Noah Allen of note did start in the Inter Miami 2 game. His first start back from that injury, back in playing left back. That was great to see for him. But you're right. I mean, I think that everybody that you can see, and you saw it against Columbus, Benjamin Cremaschi is going to be a stud. He just, if you had asked us a year ago, 2 years ago, you would have gotten the same answer. This kid's trajectory is to the moon. And it's just unbelievable to see how good he is. And I mean, I'm trying to think. He might. I don't want to go too crazy, but he might wind up being the first. I would think he would be the first homegrown because they put the homegrown in later to designated player. I mean, that is a possibility for this kid eventually.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I think there are other players that have had that happen, like Mihailovic. I think for when he was at Chicago. I don't know. I have to double
Okay.
check.
I would have to
That's
double
probably
check
it's
on
happened
that.
before. I think
Yeah, because I know like with
Jesus
Freddie
Ferrero,
Adu,
Ricardo Freddie.
Clint Dempsey, right? Like yeah,
Yes.
like certain ones that
Mhm.
but those were before CBA negotiations. Whatever. We're getting too into the weeds here.
Yeah.
But definitely has
But yeah,
the
we
potential to be a star in this league,
yeah.
and I think that we saw that.
I hope he gets to the DP level. That'll be huge success for Miami, seeing showing the youth players that you go through the academy and play well, you will get first team minutes, and then you will get rewarded hopefully with a big time DP contract. Become the face of the club, and it's just rewarding to see. That's the
Yeah.
goal Inter Miami had all along, and to see them do it now, it's just super cool to see.
Of note, Kremeski is available for dual national between the United States and Argentina. Also, David Ruiz is available for the United States or Honduras, who he has trained with in the past, if he decides to go through the Honduras route. So I guess I just want to wrap up the conversation on where Phil stands right now, because I guess he can't pay too much attention to the chatter online, but we can, and we see it, and we know that I was, I guess, a little bit surprised this past week when I was reading a little bit of the banter back and forth that had said, well, this, Inter Miami just skated by with a win over Columbus, and oh, it's still the same old thing. And I was wondering to myself, where would a credit be? I mean, Columbus is one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference on the road this year in MLS more than any year. MLS has, just so that everybody understands, statistically, MLS has the strongest home field advantage of any top league. We're expanding that to like Brazil, Argentina, Netherlands, etc., Mexico. Of any top league, MLS has the strongest home field advantage of any of those leagues in the world. In addition to that, this year's home field advantage has been stronger than any home field advantage in MLS so far. So teams are really dominating at home in this early MLS season. So I thought, at least in my estimation, just from a regular, long season sort of standpoint, if you had removed the 6-game losing streak, a 2-1 win at Columbus in Columbus would be a huge sign of promise and optimism and hope. And so I wonder if it's just the sourness, getting that taste out of your mouth from the losing streak that this is a part of, and if they can string together 2-3 wins here if the title turn. And I'm just hoping that thinking that it would have happened sooner than later.
Yeah, but well, not but yes, I agree. But it's a long season, and this win will hopefully help them in the long run. If it's between them and Columbus, or I don't know, the ninth spot, and they already have a win against them, and who knows. So regardless, it's a good win. The youngsters played, and it was a just an overall solid performance from Inter Miami, and they should be proud about the perseverance they had to come through a 6-game losing streak and still be together and put on a good performance like that.
3 games in 8 days this week as Inter Miami will host all 3 of them. It'll be Saturday against Atlanta United, Tuesday, May 9th against Charleston Battery in the U.S. Open Cup, and it'll close on the 13th against New England Revolution. All those games will be at home in Drive Pink Stadium. And I think, Alex, that does it. Let's talk from all of the socials as I go through it. We'll go through Twitter. Follow us there. Follow us here on YouTube if you're watching us on YouTube, and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and subscribe to the Substack, theheronoutlet.substack.com. She is Alex Winley, and for our producer Andres and Austin Robillard, I am Ian Hess. This has been the Heron Outlet, and we'll see you back here this time next week.